is filled with little bumps.
Called the wrist twist steering control, it was developed for Mercury by ex-missile engineer Bob Rump.
The evolution of car safety has been a roller coaster over the years. Some old car features previously considered safe proved dangerous, prompting car designers and manufacturers to rethink their choices. From unconventional seatbelts to undependable window vents, these risky car features were common in the yesteryear. However, they've since faded away as car designers' mastery of car safety improved. Hang tight as we embark on an adventure down automotive history to discover 15 utterly dangerous car features from the old days that no longer exist. Number 1. Water balloon bumpers. To start us off are water balloon bumpers. These were safety features installed on cars in the mid-20th century that were meant to reduce damage triggered by low-impact collisions, reducing the probability of injuries to passengers and drivers. But how effective were water balloon bumpers? The fact that they didn't last long on the market clearly indicates that something was wrong with them. When they first entered the market, major players such as Chrysler and Ford embraced this idea, hoping to reduce the impact of crashes. Little did they know that the drawbacks of these bumpers outweighed their advantages. There's no denying that they were instrumental in reducing car damage during collisions. However, they could only be effective for low-speed impacts. Moreover, they were heavy design-wise, negatively affecting the car's handling. Again, enhancing the effectiveness of these water balloon bumpers required car owners to invest in anti-freeze water, the cost of which was unbearable. By the 1970s, car manufacturers ditched this dangerous feature as research established it wasn't offering the required safety boost. And this was for the good of car owners. After all, what was the point of having a feature that couldn't work in high-speed crashes, which are more life-threatening? Number 2. Non-collapsible steering columns. Back in the old days, early cars featured non-collapsible steering columns. Basically, these were rigid metal rods that facilitated the connection between the steering wheel and the steering mechanism. Non-collapsible steering columns posed a serious safety risk in case of a crash, as they could pierce the driver, especially in a frontal collision. Moreover, non-collapsible steering columns lacked a mechanism to absorb impact force during a crash. Their lack of safety prompted Thomas Losito to invent the collapsible steering column, marking a significant advancement in automotive safety. However, manufacturers were reluctant to adopt the collapsible steering column because safety concerns had not been prioritized as solidly in earlier vehicles. Increased awareness of automotive regulations and safety was implemented in the late 20th century, specifically in the United States, eliciting widespread adoption of collapsible steering columns. General Motors would later introduce the collapsible steering column in 1967, capable of absorbing impact and minimizing injuries. This innovation was a decisive moment for vehicle safety. Non-collapsible columns were phased out, paving the way for safer designs. Number 3. Wrist twist swivel system. Ford engineer Robert J. Rumpf invented the wrist twist swivel system. The aerospace industry had hired him to introduce fresh ideas to Ford, which he successfully did. His impact was felt across the automobile industry for decades, with the wrist twist swivel system and others. Approximately 15 U.S. patents had been credited to Robert, mainly in the passenger restraints and vehicle safety area, and assigned to TRW Inc., Firestone, and Ford. The wrist twist swivel system was an innovative alternative to the steering wheel, replacing the standard wheel with rotating dials. The idea was meant to give drivers an easy, more relaxed steering experience. Even though it appeared to be cool, drivers discovered that it was more confusing and impractical. It featured unfamiliar controls to which the driver struggled to adapt. Despite their seeming simplicity, drivers incessantly complained about their lack of support. Car manufacturers later admitted the system was ineffective, agreeing that the standard steering wheel was safer. The wrist twist system disappeared in the 1970s, never to reappear on the face of the automotive industry. Number 4. Swing-away steering wheels. Swing-away steering wheels were first introduced in the 1961 Ford Thunderbird, and later on other Ford products throughout the 1960s. With the transmission selector in park, the steering wheel could move 9 inches to the right, allowing drivers to enter and exit the vehicle easily. By 1962, at least 77% of buyers chose the swing-away steering wheel. While this idea seemed great initially, the mechanism would fail often, making it unreliable. Sometimes the steering wheel just couldn't swing back into place accordingly, creating safety dangers. Eventually, the feature was discontinued following new government safety standards, which required the steering wheel and column to absorb a defined amount of impact in a crash. As a result, swing-away steering wheels disappeared into thin air, paving the way for more secure, stable, and safe designs. Number 5. Pop-out windshields. Pop-out windshields were first launched in the early 1900s. They comprised 2 sheets of window pane glass designed to act as exit routes for passengers during accidents. However, they were prone to exploding in the event of impact, which posed a danger to passengers. Furthermore, car designers discovered that the pop-out windshields could release quickly in severe collisions, possibly ejecting passengers. To enhance passenger safety, curved windshields were introduced in the automotive industry, with designs reaching modern strength levels in the 1970s. Then, activists appealed for federal safety standards, forcing the U.S. government to set up the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. The body introduced various present-day safety standards that modern car windshields had to adhere to, including 3 federal motor vehicle safety standards: FMVSS 219, 212, and 205. The last 2 standards focused on auto glass resilience, transparency, and windshield retention power during a collision. FMVSS 219 demanded that during a crash, no part of the vehicle should penetrate the windshield over 6 millimeters. Windshield technology has evolved over the years, with smart, Gorilla, and panoramic windshields now available. Number 6. Lap seatbelts. Also known as 2-point seatbelts, the lap seatbelt was first introduced in vehicles as a safety feature in the 1950s, but it could only protect the lower body, exposing the upper body to danger in case of a crash. Passengers were at risk of severe head, neck, spine, and chest injuries in frontal collisions. Car users raised safety concerns, prompting manufacturers to rethink the design. Later, Niels Bohlin, a Volvo engineer, invented the 3-point seatbelt in 1959, which combined the lap belt with a shoulder seatbelt in one system to address these flaws. It enhanced passenger protection, becoming more common, especially in frontal seats in the 1970s, particularly in Europe. The US would then adopt 3-point seatbelts in the 1980s. But why did vehicle manufacturers discontinue lap seatbelts? Due to increased risk of injury. Passengers using lap seatbelts were at risk of seatbelt syndrome. You see, these seatbelts had a jackknifing effect, and that means users were prone to head injuries, spine fractures, and internal organ damage. Number 7. Metal vehicle dashboards. Back in the day, metal dashboards were a common feature of car interiors, but as you may already be thinking, their safety was questionable since they lacked padding or protection in the event of a collision. When accidents happened, passengers encountered rough steel surfaces, increasing the risk of severe injury. Moreover, the cost of building the metal dashboard was slightly higher. And so, in the 1960s, the automotive industry saw the need for safer materials, giving birth to padded dashboards. Claire L. Straith, a car safety pioneer, was credited with advocating for padded dashboards in the 1930s. The first car to ever feature a padded dashboard hit the market in 1948, but it was not until the 1970s that padded dashboards became widely adopted. Padded dashboards are vehicle safety features that allow passengers to protect themselves during a crash when an airbag fails to deploy. They reduce the severity of head injuries during an accident. The introduction of padded dashboards marked the end of metal dashboards as vehicle manufacturers opted for safety instead of aesthetics. Number 8. Unsafe fuel tanks. Back in the 1970s, fuel tanks, specifically those used in some vehicle models, triggered a massive public safety debate. This was necessitated by design flaws which increased their risk of exploding or catching fire in the event of an accident. The most notorious unsafe fuel tanks were for the Ford Pinto, renowned for its rear-positioned fuel tank. It was prone to crumbling in case of a rear-end collision, resulting in destructive fires. This design flaw was exposed after a streak of tragic incidents, prompting many lawsuits and damaging Ford's reputation. The Pinto story proved to be a critical moment, displaying the danger of disregarding safety. This occasioned more stringent design regulations across the automotive industry. Ford later discontinued production of the Pinto in 1980 to salvage its reputation and adhere to public safety standards. Fuel tank design flaws like the ones discovered in the Pinto demonstrated how corporate decision-makers prioritized profits over safety. The unsafe fuel tanks would later be discontinued due to public, regulatory, and legal pressure as safety standards unfolded. Number 9. Lack of crumple zones. Early cars didn't feature crumple zones, which negatively impacted their safety and contributed to fatalities and severe injuries and accidents. Back in the day, vehicle designs prioritized aesthetics and durability over passenger protection during accidents. Also known as deformation zones, crumple zones are a vital safety feature that reduces car accident injuries and minimizes the number of fatalities. A crushed crumple zone indicates the after effects of an accident and also demonstrates that the car performed according to its design. The lack of crumple zones meant that the vehicle didn't absorb a big percentage of the impact energy, and so the force was transferred to the passengers, resulting in severe injuries and even death. Remember, the human body can only sustain limited deceleration force, and where there are no crumple zones to minimize that force, the chances of injuries on the head, neck, and chest are higher. Bela Barényi, a Hungarian-Australian engineer working for Mercedes-Benz, introduced and patented the idea of crumple zones in the 1950s. The Mercedes-Benz W111 Fintail was the first car to feature crumple zones, and it was manufactured in 1959. Number 10. Hood ornaments. The idea of hood ornaments started in the late 19th century and played a practical function in early cars in the form of radiator caps. Back then, cars featured external radiators that needed frequent engine temperature monitoring. The radiator cap came with an external thermometer, which drivers used to monitor the temperature. The radiator caps were usually mounted in a notable location on the hood. Over time, manufacturers started furnishing them with decorative features. The transition from practicality to decoration was the beginning of the hood ornament's popularity as a design feature. As vehicle design evolved over the years, stricter safety regulations prompted the sharp decline of the hood ornament. In the 1960s, studies revealed that hood ornaments, particularly those with rigid structures or sharp edges, posed a danger to pedestrians in the event of a crash. As a result, many countries, specifically those in Europe, implemented safety regulations that limited the use of stiff, poked-out hood ornaments, switching to spring-loaded designs or more recessed. Later, pedestrian safety standards were introduced in various countries, deeming hood ornaments impractical and marking the beginning of the end for these features. Number 11. Lack of anti-lock brakes. Initially, anti-lock brakes, or ABS, were only used in railways and aviation. With their absence in early cars, drivers dreaded sudden braking since they were highly likely to lose control. Before the introduction of ABS in vehicles, car braking systems struggled to maintain control on slippery surfaces and during emergency situations. Anti-lock brakes are designed to prevent vehicle wheels from locking up in the event of hard braking. That allows drivers to maintain steering control while attempting to bring the car to a stop. When wheels lock up, they start rotating as the car moves, which causes it to skid uncontrollably. So, what does ABS do? It applies and releases pressure frequently per second to prevent wheel lockup, enhancing control and stopping power. As vehicle technology evolved, anti-lock brakes were adopted as a standard feature in cars, which helped drivers maintain control of their vehicles, reducing the risk of accidents. Number 12. Absence of headrests. When vehicles were invented many years ago, no one foresaw the importance of headrests. Fast forward and speed came. You may not believe this, but it's true. It took the automotive industry a century to agree that including car headrests was a great idea. The absence of headrests in early cars left passengers at risk of whiplash in the event of a rear-end collision. Whiplash is a common neck injury that occurs after rear-end collisions. When cars without headrests were hit from behind, the unexpected impact would force the head to rapidly snap backward before rebounding forward. In addition to straining neck muscles, this motion could cause herniated discs, soft tissue injuries, damage the spine, and even trigger severe neck problems. The absence of headrests meant that passengers and drivers' heads lacked support and could be thrown back dangerously, worsening whiplash injuries. Can you imagine that headrests were once viewed as comfort car features? However, they later became vital for reducing neck injuries and eventually declared mandatory, which marked a remarkable advancement in passenger safety. Number 13. T-tops. Gordon Burig patented the removable panel roof, also known as a T-top, in mid-1951. T-tops were common in many coupes and sports cars between the 1970s and 1990s. They provided the open-air experience of convertibles without compromising the roof's structure. So, why were they phased out? Various safety concerns were raised, indicating that removing the core roof section weakened the car's structural integrity. Again, the absence of a solid roof placed T-top vehicles at the risk of rollover accidents. They also provided less protection from overhead impacts in accidents. As convertibles reemerged in the market, T-tops slowly faded, marking the end of their existence in the automotive industry. Number 14. Gated shifters. Gate shifters were stylish and iconic features in high-performance cars back in the day. Still, they had various drawbacks, which made driving challenging and could lead to vehicle damage and accidents. With the gated shifter, drivers had to move the gear lever through particular channels, which could slow down the shifting process. In situations that required rapid gear changes, slower shifting could cause a delayed reaction, which could be dangerous, particularly during overtaking maneuvers or when accelerating fast. The precision needed to navigate a gated shifter led to misshifting or entirely missing gears. As a driver, if you were unfamiliar with the gated design, you would either shift to the wrong gear or fail at engaging the gear. Over time, safety standards evolved, and manufacturers started adopting more intuitive and straightforward gear selection systems, reducing the risk of error. Automatic gear shifting and transmission technologies that required minimal maintenance were later introduced, pushing gate shifters out of the market. Number 15. Window vents. Also known as quarter windows, window vents were small windows positioned at the rear or front of car doors, or somewhere in the body close to the main windows. They were meant for ventilation as the main windows remained closed. While they let air flow in the car, keeping passengers cool, they made cars less dynamic. Window vents were also additionally entry points through which thieves could steal. Additional glass in the doors posed a danger during accidents, so removing them reduced the risk of injury from broken glass and simplified the vehicle's design. The invention and popularity of air conditioning pushed window vents out of the market. Car owners also opted for comfort features that offered consistent temperature regulation, ditching manual ventilation options. There you have it, the 15 dangerous car features from the past that are no longer available. Do you have more features to share with us? What do you want to see next? Tell us in the comment section below. Please like and share the video with your friends and loved ones.